Back of the Napkin and Other Planning Tips, episode 121. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, Moshe Amsel, and today I want to talk about planning because it's kind of goes hand in hand with the financial discussion that we've been having. Why is it important to know your numbers? Why is it accountants use numbers to look at your past, but your past is irrelevant, right? It already happened, and if it was a good past, you want to try to repeat it. If it was a bad past, you want to try to improve it or not repeat it. So there's not really a lot of benefit to looking at the past other than to learn from mistakes and things like that. So the entire accounting industry doesn't make any sense from a business owner's standpoint. As a matter of fact, that's why many business owners don't put a priority on tracking their information. I don't care what already happened. I only care about what's going to happen. So the firm finances episode we did last week is an eye-opener as to what you need to do as an owner that you might have been ignoring, that you might have not been doing. But today we're going to talk about something that many law firm owners are not doing, and this you need to be doing. I mean, the other things you need to be doing too, but if you want to move forward in a positive direction, if you want to achieve your goals, you want to achieve your dreams that you set out to do when you started your law firm, then you need to have intention. You need to be purposeful in the actions that you take that are going to take you towards that goal. So today I want to focus on planning, on looking towards the future, and what does that look like, and how do you go about doing that? Before I jump into the topic for today, I just want to share with you that I run a group coaching program called the 90-Day Law Firm Turnaround, and in that program, we help law firm owners get really clear on what is it they're trying to build, how are they going to build it, and what needs to happen in order to make that happen. It's a tremendous amount of clarity, focus, and attention that comes from the program, and it really sets them up for the next year to be their most successful, profitable year ever in the life of their firm. And I would like to do the same for you. Now, you can't just join the program. It's not open that way. You need to come in through a free coaching session that I do. The reason I do that is because in that coaching session, first of all, we can really uncover where you're getting stuck. We can really uncover what is holding you back, what are your weak points, and usually it's not a surface level problem. Usually it's not, I don't have enough time or I don't have enough money. It's usually much deeper than that, what might be holding you back from moving forward. And we dive into that. We try to uncover that in that coaching session. So that's number one, is we really want to get clear on where you are and therefore what is, why would this be purposeful for you? Why would this be the right program for you? And then second, I want you to experience what it's like to work with me at that level. And I don't think that you can really understand it until you experience this for yourself. So I only open up a select number of free coaching sessions during the course of a month, and my calendar fills up quickly. But if this sounds like something that's of interest to you, you definitely want to go to profitwithlaw.com/free coaching, profitwithlaw.com/free coaching. You can register for a free coaching session with me there. It is a 90-minute session. It's a full hour and a half. We really get detailed and dive deep. This is, I do not skimp during this coaching session. and I expect that you would bring your all as well. There are some questions you need to answer in order to book that call, so you want to make sure that you fill out that questionnaire. Give yourself about 5 to 10 minutes or so to do that, so that I have the information I need, and you're valuing my time by providing me with some of that basic information that I need to get on that call with you. So once again, profitwithlaw.com/free coaching. And if you want immense clarity, if you want conviction moving forward, if you want to achieve the success that you've been after and it's been elusive to you so far, or you've been getting frustrated or stuck, you definitely want to hop on a call with me, and you can do that at profitwithlaw.com/free coaching. So let's talk about planning. Now, the very first thing, and I've talked about this on prior episodes, you need to have a dream, you need to have a vision, you need to know what you want, where you want to go. You need to understand your why, you need to understand who you work with. But let's assume that you've worked through all that stuff, and now you just want to figure out what's going to work, what's not going to work. And what I like to do is I like to do what I call back of the napkin math, or back of the napkin planning. Now, where the heck did back of the napkin math, that term, come from? Well, business deals used to happen at the bar. Back in the day when it was only men doing business deals and only men in the bar, two men would go out drinking, and they would be sitting at the bar, and one of them would say, "Hey, I've got this business idea. I want to propose to you," and literally take a bar napkin off the counter, put it on the bar, and start to write out the math of the business opportunity. So you can imagine no software involved, no real detail involved, because there's only so much room on that napkin. And that's the first place to start, because if the basic numbers don't make sense to you, then you got to switch gears. You got to change the plan. So it's kind of like this immediate gut check of, is this going to work based on what I just described? So this is one example of how it would be used, and you can use it in many different ways to make many different business decisions. But let's talk about high level. You decide that for the next quarter, the next 90 days, you want to bring in $100,000 of revenue to your law firm. You also have decided that you're going to be charging flat fee pricing, and your typical engagement is $5,000 of revenue for that engagement. Okay, so I'm just making up numbers on the fly, and this seems realistic, right? So if you take 100,000 divided by 5,000, right? That simple math tells you how many new clients you need to bring in to hit this number that you're trying to achieve, and that's 20 clients. Now, if you look at that at a monthly level, you take your quarter and divide it by 3. You're now at 6 and change clients per month. So now what you've done is this is the first gut check. This is the first place where you're like, okay, does this work? And that is, can I bring in 6 clients a month? Is that something that is realistic? And it's actually 6 and change, right? So let's just say 7. So you end up with 21, and if you're off, then then at least you got that buffer room, right? So 7 clients a month. Can I bring in 7 clients a month, or 21 clients this quarter, to be able to achieve my goals? And that's the first question that you need to answer. And you may not know the answer to that question. Here's the trick. Here's the problem. If you look at past history, if you look at what already happened, what already transpired, that's not indicative of what's possible for the future. It's only indicative of what you've been able to do so far. And the problem is that people go right there. That's the first place they go. If you're listening to this, you probably went there already. You probably said, okay, my numbers are different. These are my numbers, and I need X number of clients a month. Oh my gosh, I've only been able to bring in 3 clients a month. I need 5. I've only been able to bring in 4 clients a month. I need 8. That sounds unrealistic because I have not been able to do that until now. And that's the wrong place to be addressing this from. That's the wrong place to be arriving at the decision that this doesn't work. So what do you do? How do you interpret the information? Well, you look at the number and you say, okay, do I think that it is within the realm of possibility to be able to find 7 new clients for the month, every month for my law firm? It might require me to do things differently than I'm doing right now, but is it possible? If I had the right marketing effort, if I had the right salesperson involved, if I had the right pieces of the puzzle that are missing, would I be able to bring in this number of clients a month? Now, if the answer is no, then there you've got your first place where you're like, okay, this may not work. And therefore, we need to go back a couple of steps to fix something. Okay, we can talk about what that is. But if the answer is yes, then you can move on to the next step and you can say, okay, so now let's figure out what's it going to take to bring in 7 new clients a month, right? And that's where the exercise kicks off. But if you had a no, right, you have to go back. What are the 2 variables that you put in so far? You put in a $100,000 goal for the quarter. You put in $5,000 of revenue per client. Those are the 2 numbers. Those are the only 2 things that can change to make this work better. So we want to, if you need to decrease the number of clients required, you either need to decrease your revenue goal or you need to decrease or increase how much you're charging per client, right? So if instead of 100,000 per client, instead of 100,000 for the quarter, I say, okay, my goal is 70,000 for the quarter. Now, if you divide that by 5,000, that arrives at 14. 14 divided by 3 brings us down to less than 5, right? So we're at 4 and change. So between 4 and 5 new clients a month. Now you go back to your gut check. You say, okay, can I achieve this? Now, the problem with changing the goal number, the top number, is obviously you pick that number for a reason. So now you're going to settle for a lower number. What are you going to do to eventually get to the number that you want? And how is that going to work in the long run? But the other thing that you could do is you could look at your pricing and you could say, well, I want to decrease how many new clients I need. Well, then maybe we increase the price. Maybe instead of charging $5,000 in engagement, we go to $7,000 or $7,500. And now the math is a little bit different. So let's say we're using $7,500 just for argument's sake. And I'm going to actually pull up a calculator and do this math because I'm not doing it in my head. 100,000 divided by 7,500 gives us 13.33 clients. Divide that by 3, and it gives us 4 and change. So once again, we either decrease our top line estimate of where our goal of where we want to be, or we increase how much we're charging, and we arrive at the same 4 to 5 clients per month, which might be more feasible than 7 a month. So that's how you work your way backwards in the back of the napkin math to go back and alter the numbers. Now, if when you alter the numbers, you say, okay, I can't charge more than 5,000, so I need to decrease my goal to 75,000. But I need to earn 100,000 a quarter. I'm not willing to settle for 75,000. Well, then maybe you need to look at doing something else. Maybe you need to get more specific with what you offer so you could charge more. Maybe you need to find ways to charge additional fees on top of this flat $5,000 fee along the way. Maybe you need to offer another option or another thing for sale in addition to your $5,000 flat fee service. Now, obviously, most law firms, even if you've hyper niched your practice and your focus, you usually have more than one thing that you're doing for your potential clients. So it's not always such simple math as, oh, it's a $5,000 item, 100,000 divided by 5,000 gives me 20 clients, right? It doesn't work that way all the time. So you might want to, even though this is back of the napkin math, you might want to use a spreadsheet or something like that so you can list all your different products and your projections of how many of each one you're going to sell in the quarter to achieve your goal, your top line revenue goal. So at this point, we've got our top line revenue number, we've got our per unit sales. So now we know how many clients we need to bring in for every type of thing that we sell. And we've done a gut check and we've decided that we can proceed. We have ways that we think we can do to bring in that number of clients. So now the next step is to talk about the marketing. And the marketing is what am I going to do to bring in these clients, right? If it's going to cost me, like let's say we are marketing, let's say we're doing paid ads on Facebook, or let's say we're putting up billboards, or we're running TV commercials, or we're doing networking, we're going to a bunch of networking events, or I'm hosting an in-person event, or I'm doing mailers, right? There's so many different ways you can market your firm, but if you take whichever ways you think are going to be most effective for your target market, and now you say, okay, what is the percentage of conversion? When I do mailers and I send out 1,000 pieces of mail to people, how many of those become clients? What's my conversion rate? And this goes back to the episode we did a couple of weeks ago of understanding your sales numbers, right? You need to know what those numbers are so that you can do this math. But let's say that let's just use this example that we started with. So 1,000 pieces of mail yields you one client, right? And 1,000 pieces of mail costs you $500 to send out. Well, you now know that if you want to achieve 20 clients in the quarter, you have to send out 20,000 pieces of mail to get those 20 clients, which means that you have to have 20 times 500, $10,000 spend in marketing to get those clients. So now we've got 100,000 coming in at the top level, 10,000 going out for marketing. So you can already see that you can start to check your profitability as you start to fill in the blanks. And then you say, okay, if I bring in 20 clients, I figured out how I'm going to market to them. I know what that's going to cost. Now I want to check and make sure we can actually fulfill on our promise. Can I handle 20 clients in the firm? If I don't have the capacity to handle 20 clients in the firm, what do I have to do differently to push 20 clients through the firm in a quarter? Do I need to bring on a contract attorney? Do I need to bring in a paralegal? Do I need to hire a receptionist? Do I need to bring in a reception service? Do I need to hire a virtual paralegal service? There's so many different variables of how you would do that, but you want to check that. So we're going to check some main areas, right? So we have some regular recurring expenses in the firm. Maybe you have rent, you have internet, you have technology, you have those expenses. But when you're going through this process, you already know what those expenses are. And the question is, what are the variable expenses? Variable expenses are your marketing costs, your personnel costs, and technology if it varies based on production, right? So technology might be a factor as well. But typically technology is a really small piece of the puzzle in this calculation. So I like to focus on the big pieces and not get too detailed, because you can always sharpen your pencil later. You could play around with things. If it looks too close in the numbers, in other words, you do this math, and at the end of the day, you look at it and you're like, okay, we bring in 100,000 for the quarter, and I get to bring home $5,000 of profit. That's not a healthy business. That's not the way I want to run. So we need to make a change. And that's where we're going with this back of the napkin math, right? And I'm getting ahead of myself, but ultimately what you're going to do is you're going to plug in your expenses as it relates to the volume of business that you're doing. And you're then going to look at your profitability, and you're going to make sure that your profitability is where you want it. And that's how you do this forward-looking planning. But what happens is that in this process of doing this back of the napkin math, you're actually creating these eye-opening situations where you are just beginning to understand the effects of how things play off of each other when it comes to the success of the firm. And you begin to understand what it takes to bring in the results that you want. So back to our example, we have our top line revenue. We know how many clients we're bringing in. We know what it's going to cost to market it. Now we look and we say, okay, well, I actually need to bring in a reception service that's going to cost me $500 a month, and I need to hire a paralegal that's going to cost me, and I don't know, let's throw a number. Let's say $8,000 a month, right? So we've now got our quarterly expenses at $10,000 for marketing, $24,000 for because we have 3 months in the quarter, and $8,000 a month for our paralegal, $24,000 for our additional paralegal, so that's $34,000, and we have $500 a month, so $1,500. So we're at $35,500 of expenses to produce this level of work so far. Now, let's say that your other overhead is $2,000 a month. So you have rent. Let's even make it more. Let's make it $5,000 a month. You have rent, and you don't have, you have software, technology, all of that. So $5,000 a month is $15,000. So now we're at $50,500 is your expenses for your $100,000 of revenue coming in. And now you look at the numbers and you can see that your profit margin is almost 50%, right? You're bringing in $100,000 and you're netting a profit of $49,500. So that math works really well. And if that was the situation, I'd be really excited to spend $10,000 on marketing, mailing envelopes, right? So, I'm sorry. Our marketing was $20,000, right? Yeah, $20,000. So my math was off. We'll go back. $20,000 for marketing. So that actually decreases our profit to $39,500. But again, still, if you're doing it as a percentage of revenue, your profit margin is 39%, which is still really good, right? Anything over 20% is a pretty good number. But when you're solo and you don't have staff, you should be closer to 50%. As you start to bring in staff, you start to increase your overhead. That's going to drop, and hopefully by increasing your overhead, you're increasing your top line revenue also. So the percentage can go down, and you're still taking home more money, right? So the idea is we want you to be successful. So in this example, the math works, and I'd be really excited to spend that money on the marketing. Now, had you not done this, in other words, if you had you not gone through this planning session, and you just said, okay, I'm gonna do direct mail, and that's gonna bring in clients with no real plan, the chances of you spending $20,000 on direct mail on as your investment in bringing in new clients is pretty slim, right? Because you wouldn't be arriving at the decision from there. You'd be arriving at the decision from what feels like a large expenditure for me to spend on marketing. And most people who are in that realm where you're not yet earning $100,000 a quarter, you're going to start to feel uncomfortable with that level of ad spend. And I said ad spend, but marketing spend, right? And that's where this becomes really important, because when you look at the numbers, it's clear as day that this is what needs to be done. If you don't spend this $20,000, you're not going to bring in your 20 clients. You're not going to hit your $100,000 of revenue for the quarter. So that's why I love doing this top level, not highly bird's eye view, not detailed. I'm not interested in worrying about how much money am I spending on toner for the printer this month, and and what is it going to cost me to for my increased phone calls based on these increase in clients, right? The small peanut dollars and cents things, you could just throw a ballpark number at that and you can make it work. It's the big items. It's the things that are gonna be the big expenses in your firm, that are gonna be the big, movers and make the difference for you. Those are the ones that we want to look at. So let's talk about how you could use this to approach a business decision. And I'm just going to use a similar example, but in reverse. So let's say that you're thinking about bringing on a marketing agency. So you don't have this grand plan of, marketing agency is going to be able to get me to achieve my goal. Instead, somebody solicited your business. You're now talking to a marketing agency and you're considering bringing them on. What you need to do is you need to be able to project from what the marketing agency is sharing with you based on their past results and their abilities and what they think is going to, their marketing plan for you. And you need to check and see what do they anticipate being able to make happen for you. And then you can approach this decision the same way, but you work it a little bit differently, right? So when you're starting from the marketing side, you're starting from the expense side, you have to work your way backwards into your revenue numbers and then go back to your expenses. So it adds an extra step. So in the marketing example, let's say the marketing agency says, well, we're going to charge you $5,000 a month, plus we're going to use, social media ads, pay-per-click, Facebook ads, whatever, which is going to be another $10,000 a month. So our total service is $15,000 a month. And right away, you're getting nauseous in this conversation. You're apprehensive. I don't know. That's a lot of money. Well, now you ask them, okay, well, how many clients can I bring in a month based on that level of spend with you? If I'm spending $15,000 a month to have you do this cohesive marketing for me, including all of this paid ads, what is that going to translate into for my law firm? Give me a worst case scenario. Give me a best case scenario. So then they turn around and they say, okay, worst case scenario, we bring in 5 new clients a month. Best case scenario, we bring in 25 new clients a month. So now you've got this range of potential for the firm. Now we go back to your revenue number and we say, okay, if I'm bringing in $5,000 per client and I get 5 new clients, that's $25,000 a month. If I get 25 new clients, that is 25 times 5,000 is 125,000 a month. Now, obviously, if I'm bringing in 125,000 a month, that would excite me when my spend is only 15 grand, right? So you can do this immediate gut check without even running through the whole exercise by looking at marketing spend as a percentage of your overall revenue. And marketing spend as a percentage of your overall revenue should be somewhere between 5 and 15%, depending on the specific details of your practice area, how competitive it is, how difficult it is to get a client. You could still have a healthy business with marketing spend as high as 25% of revenue, but that's very high. You have to run everything else really lean to make that work. So you could do a simple gut check. You could say, okay, I have a possibility of earning $25,000 and a possibility of earning $125,000. So if I earn $25,000 and I spent $15,000 to get there, $15,000 divided by $25,000 is 60%. Way too high, right? Way too high. And if we do 15,000 divided by 125,000, 12%. That's in line with what we need to be. So now you've got a dilemma on your hands because you know that it's never going to work at the first level, right? If you're bringing in if you're bringing in 5 clients and it's costing you $15,000 to get them, there's only $10,000 there for other expenses, other overhead, and you actually need to still serve those clients. There's not going to be enough meat on the bone for you to be able to live in that scenario. And therefore, that would be a no for me. Sorry, that's not going to work. Now, what this does is it allows you to now go back to the vendor and have a conversation. And you can say, well, I have determined that the most I'm willing to spend on marketing is 15% of my top line revenue, which means that for 15,000, if we take 15,000 divided by 0.15, it means I need to generate 100,000 in revenue, which is 20 clients a month, in order for it to make sense for me to do this deal with you. So notice how we were able to take some very basic math. Now, obviously, I gave you a percentage. This is the percentage of where your marketing spend should be. But you can use the same exercise we did in the first 20 minutes of this podcast to look at those expenses and where they lie. So in other words, you already know what your regular monthly overhead is. You know what you might need to do based on what your variable expenses are based on, volume. If once I get over a certain number of cases, I need to bring in this, this person or that person. But before that, I don't need them. So you kind of have a general idea of what your other expenses are. You add all of those together and you look at how much you want to make, add that, and whatever's left, that's how much you can spend on marketing. Don't use my 15% number. Use your own numbers. So let's say you want to earn in a quarter, you want to earn $40,000 take home. And let's say that your monthly overhead is $5,000. So that brings us to $45,000, right? Actually, we need to include taxes in there too, right? So let's say taxes are 40%. So you're keeping 60% is your take home. So divide by 0.6, 40,000 divided by 0.6, you're at 66,000 of take home before taxes that you need to take home from the firm, right? So I'm gonna round that up just for this conversation, and I'm gonna make it 70,000 just to use round numbers. So then if your monthly overhead is 5,000, we add 5,000 to that, and then if your personnel and outsourcing costs is another 10,000, or let's say 10,000, then that brings you to 85,000. Now you know that if you want to if you want to make all of that happen, you now have your marketing expense on top of that. So if we know our marketing expense is 15,000, we know our top line we need to hit is 100,000. We're at 85. Add 15,000, we're at 100,000. Now I need to generate 100,000 in revenue to make this 15,000 of marketing spend work, right? So there's different ways to do this math. There's different directions you can go. But notice how we don't need a lot of inputs. We don't need a lot of pieces of information to be able to make good decisions at the top level without getting into all the fine minutia of the specific expenses that you have. And that's why I like this exercise, this back of the napkin, bird's eye view planning, because it allows you to very quickly discount the bad ideas. It allows you to very easily say no to those. And it allows you to recognize which are the things that you should be focusing some more energy and effort on because it makes sense. The math makes sense. So now let me entertain it further. Let me look at it further. You wouldn't waste your time researching whether somebody is going to achieve their goals or not. In other words, in this marketing example, I wouldn't waste my time looking to see if this particular marketing agency is a good one if I don't get that math to work on the front end. In other words, they just gave me this range of 5 to 25, and I know that they need to hit a minimum of 20 for this math to work. Well, now I can go back to them and I can say, look, we're not going to have a conversation unless you can guarantee me 20 new clients a month on that level of ad spend. And if you cannot guarantee that, with like money, cash back guarantees, from the expenses put in, then it's not going to work for me, right? So maybe they do. It's not a dead deal, but maybe there is a conversation to be had about those kinds of guarantees. Maybe they have a ramp up period. Maybe you get 5 new clients a month on the first month, but they're ramping up to this 25 number. And they believe within 90 days you'll be at 25. Well, now it might make sense. Now you got to see, okay, how long am I going to be losing money before I start making money? And can I withstand that? Can I last that long? And that's where you need to start looking at your personal finances and whether you can go without a paycheck for a while in order to make this happen. I'm not saying it's a bad decision to move into that. Every decision has to be taken with all the inputs and all the information and looked at. And this is where so many business owners go based on their gut. They go based on, okay, I'm looking for a marketing person. I like what this one does. I like the strategy this one has, and this is what they're going to cost. Okay, I'm going to pay it, and then we're going to figure out how to make money after that. That's not the way to go about making decisions in your business. And if you just take the time to just go through some basic assumptions, basic numbers, you'll know how much revenue do I need to bring in to keep me profitable at the level I want to be profitable at. And this is where this ties in to Profit First. So Profit First gives you these target allocation percentages. It gives you these percentages you can try to achieve, strive for and achieve. And you can use that matrix of percentages and the breakdown of revenue, operating expenses, taxes, profit, owner's pay. You can use that matrix to kind of do some of this math. But I don't want to confuse the issue too much by referring back to it, but you might notice the similarities. And the similarities are there because it's all based on, does this make sense? Does this make it a healthy business? And a healthy business is not one where we bring in revenue and we're able to pay all our expenses and we're not losing money. Because what do you have to show for it as the owner? Where's your money? Where's your income? It does not make any sense for you to run a business and not make money off of it. Now, yes, in the short term, is that a possibility? In the short term, is that something that is very likely that you will operate at a loss in the first few months, in the first year? Sure. You haven't figured out how to bring in clients yet. You start to generate expenses. You don't have a way to cover those expenses. So how do you navigate that with Profit First? Maybe another conversation for us to have. But as a business owner, you make those decisions intentionally. You don't just let it happen to you. You don't just wake up at the end of the year and say, "Oh my gosh, we lost $30,000 this year." You should be planning for that $30,000 loss, expecting it, knowing it's going to happen, and being prepared for it, knowing how you're going to financially survive, knowing how your firm's going to financially survive. And that brings us to a different conversation of debt, good versus bad. And we touched on that in last week's episode of the, understanding the firm finances basics. But maybe we have a separate conversation here on the podcast talking about debt, because I encourage you to invest in your law firm. Back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, you couldn't open a business without a substantial investment, $200,000-$300,000, because you had to get an office. You didn't have access to technology the way that you do today. You didn't have access to people the way you do today. So you had to plan on spending money on advertising. You had to put your name in the yellow pages and commit to, $2,000 a month for that. You had to join these networking groups. There was no other way to meet people. And social media didn't exist. So you think about the barriers to entry have been lowered. And in that process of lowering the barriers to entry, we've forgotten that sometimes it takes money to make money. Sometimes we need to invest in our business to get it to be successful. And there's a lot of resources available, including the Small Business Administration, family members, close friends, your own money. Maybe you've got money, in some sort of investment that you can tap. Maybe you close out an investment. You're investing in your law firm, which has the greatest potential of all if you do things right. But at the same time, if you get access to capital, you borrow money, you get an investor, whatever it is, and I'm certainly not touching on the conversation about whether you could take a non-attorney as an investor in your law firm, not for today. But let's just say that you get loans from family, friends, whatever it is. The biggest issue is that when somebody does get access to that capital, often that capital is spent in the wrong places. And that's why this planning is so important. That's why having this plan and executing this plan is so important, because you need to plan for where that money is going to go and how it's going to work for you, how it's going to bring in more money to your firm. So hopefully you find this discussion helpful. Hopefully you find this exercise helpful. And I'm a numbers person. I can just talk about numbers and I can visualize it. For many of you, it's hard to listen to a podcast and understand how to implement this. So my recommendation is that you take a piece of paper and a pen, go back and listen to this episode, and just go through the motions of doing this number crunching on paper while you're listening to it. And if it doesn't make sense to you, you have access to me in the Law Firm Growth Incubator, as well as in the 90-day Law Firm Growth. The 90-day Law Firm Turnaround Group Coaching Program. So if you want to learn about either of those, the 90-day Law Firm Turnaround Group Coaching Program is by application only through a free coaching session. You can sign up for a free coaching session by going to profitwithlaw.com/free coaching, profitwithlaw.com/free coaching. The incubator gives you access to me through a Q&A once a month, as well as an information session that I do once a month on firm the running of the firm finances, the people, the team, and all of that. And you can join the incubator for $97 a month. Go to profitwithlaw.com/incubator, profitwithlaw.com/incubator, and you can join there. So I love talking about this stuff. I don't think there's enough people that talk about it. I think that the financial side of the business is kind of taboo. It's like, I don't know, it's like talking about sex. Like people just don't talk about it. And there's no, like, life would be better if we talked about it, right? Life would be better if you talked about money and you understood the money, the flow, the math behind the money in your firm. And, this is not something to shy away from, to say, oh, I'm not a numbers person, I don't know math. I mean, come on, this is basic arithmetic. It's not like we're doing algebraic permutations. You just needed to get through second grade math to be able to do business math. So if you hide behind I'm not good at math, the numbers are not my thing, you're going to keep yourself back from becoming the amazing business owner that you can be, the amazing law firm that you can be. You have the potential to achieve all of your wildest dreams, but it's going to take work. It's going to take planning. It's going to take purposeful action. And there's no way to take the right purposeful action if you're not able to do these kinds of exercises up front, because otherwise you're going to rely on your accountant to tell you at the end of the year what your profitability was. How much money did you lose? You really want to wait 12 months to find out how awesome you did or how awful you did? I would want to know every single month, are we on track? I want to know every single quarter, did we accomplish our quarterly goals? What are my goals for the next quarter? What am I going to do every day to make sure those goals happen? That's the place you need to be. That's the mindset you need to have in order to be successful as a law firm owner. So until next time, I hope that you enjoyed this and have a great and fabulous day. Have you been enjoying the show? We sure hope so. To make sure you never miss an episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player app. Next week, we will be back with more valuable resources and ideas on how to break the mold and take your law firm to the next level.